Before you utter the words, "I want a divorce," pause for a moment, think deeply, is this truly the only path left, or is it the outcome of anger, ego, or impatience? Many lives are shattered in a split second, not because solutions didn't exist, but because hearts were too hardened to see them. The truth is, marriage was never meant to be a bed of roses without thorns. It was designed as a journey of growth, struggle, and mercy. Divorce is permitted, yes, but only as the last door when every other door has been tried and tested. Too often, couples rush to break apart over matters that could have been resolved with a kind word, a little patience, or a humble apology. What begins as a heated argument ends in lifelong regret when decisions are made in haste. You owe it to yourself, to your partner, and to your children, if you have them, to ensure that the step you're about to take is not a mistake you will carry forever. Marriage is not only about romance and smiles, it is about sacrifice, forgiveness, and endurance. If you are planning to walk away, have you truly reflected on your role in the relationship? Have you humbled your heart enough to forgive, to rebuild, to try again? Or are you allowing your pride and anger to blind you from the blessings that still exist? Remember, every test you face in marriage is shaping your character, refining your patience, and proving the strength of your faith. So before you let frustration lead you into a decision that may scar your life, listen carefully. This message is not just a reminder, it's a wake-up call. If you are planning to divorce, listen to this with an open heart, for sometimes the words you hear today could be the very thing that saves your tomorrow. When we talk about marriage, we must understand from the very beginning that it is not just a social contract, but a sacred bond, one that was created with wisdom, love, and divine blessing. When two souls come together, they are not just agreeing to share a house, food, and responsibilities. They are entering into a journey that requires patience, compassion, and sacrifice. It is meant to be a lifelong commitment, not a temporary arrangement that is discarded the moment difficulties appear. And this is why divorce, though permissible, was never designed to be the first solution to problems. It was kept as the very last resort, to be considered only when every other attempt to reconcile has failed. Unfortunately, in today's world, divorce has become the first thought in the minds of many couples whenever conflict arises. A harsh word is spoken, and the heart immediately says, "I cannot live with this person anymore." A disagreement takes place, and suddenly the mind concludes, "This marriage is over." But is this the way we were taught to handle trials? Is this the way patience, mercy, and wisdom are meant to be applied in life? Absolutely not. A marriage cannot survive if every problem is treated as an excuse to walk away. If a home is built with effort, why should it be destroyed so quickly over matters that could be resolved with dialogue, compromise, and forgiveness? Every relationship will face storms. No marriage is free from arguments, misunderstandings, or moments of pain. But storms are not meant to sink your ship. They are meant to test the strength of your sails. In those moments of hardship, a wise couple holds on tighter instead of letting go. They remind themselves that challenges are part of the journey. They ask, have we truly tried every solution before thinking about ending this bond? Have we sat down with calmness and humility to understand each other? Have we sought counsel from elders, or prayed sincerely for guidance? Sadly, many skip these vital steps and head straight for separation. And later, they live with the heavy regret of realizing that what was broken could have been fixed if they had only been more patient. Think of it this way: if you fall sick, you don't immediately consider cutting off the part of your body that is unwell. You first try treatment, medicine, care, and healing. Only when all cures have failed and life itself is at risk would you even think of something as extreme as removal. Marriage should be viewed in the same light. If something is wrong, if pain exists, if arguments occur, you don't rush to remove the entire relationship from your life. You treat it, you heal it, you give it time and care. Divorce is like that final surgical step, only to be taken when every medicine, every attempt, and every effort has failed. Another reality we often forget is that divorce affects not only the husband and wife, but also the families around them, and most of all, the children. Children carry the scars of divorce in silence. They do not always express their pain in words, but their hearts feel it deeply. If the marriage truly cannot be saved, then yes, divorce becomes a mercy. But when it is used hastily, it becomes a wound that lasts generations. That is why wisdom teaches us to slow down, to think beyond ourselves, and to ask whether we are destroying more than just our own comfort when we end a marriage. Patience, humility, and forgiveness are the tools that preserve marriages. A single kind gesture, a sincere apology, or a willingness to listen can solve what anger was ready to destroy. If couples remembered that divorce is not the first step, but the last, they would try harder to save what they have before giving it up. And when they truly exhaust all avenues, when the relationship becomes toxic beyond repair, when living together causes harm rather than growth, then divorce comes as a mercy, not a weapon. So the message is clear: never rush toward ending what can still be mended. Divorce is a door that should only be opened when every other door has been tried and closed. Until then, hold on, fight for your marriage, and remember that sometimes the greatest victories in life are not in walking away, but in choosing to stay and build again. One of the greatest challenges human beings face in marriage is the power of emotions. Emotions are strong, they are real, and they can take over our minds so quickly that we forget logic, wisdom, and even faith. When anger rises, when disappointment grows, or when frustration takes control, people often make decisions they later regret. This is especially true when it comes to divorce. Many couples, in moments of heated anger, pronounce words that change the course of their lives forever. But if only they had paused, if only they had waited for the storm of emotions to settle, they would have realized that the decision they made in haste was not the decision their heart and soul truly wanted. Think about how emotions work. Anger, for example, can blind a person. It shuts down reason, blocks out compassion, and fuels words that were never meant to be spoken. How many times has someone shouted, "I want a divorce," only to wake up the next day regretting those words? How many couples have thrown away years of effort and love because they could not control one heated argument? This is why patience is not just a virtue in marriage. It is a shield. It protects you from making permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. A wise person knows that emotions will come and go, but decisions have consequences that last a lifetime. Marriage is a field where patience is tested every day. Two people from different families, with different personalities and habits, are trying to live together under one roof. Differences are natural, conflicts are inevitable, but the question is, how do you respond? Do you let your emotions take the lead, or do you allow wisdom to guide you? If every time anger comes you answer with divorce, then no marriage in the world could survive. But if you respond with calmness, if you take a deep breath, if you remind yourself that this moment of heat will pass, you will protect both your relationship and your peace of mind. Wisdom teaches us to delay decisions until emotions have settled. Imagine a storm at sea. The waves are violent, the winds are strong. Would a wise sailor try to steer his ship recklessly in the middle of the storm, or would he wait patiently until the sea calms so he can navigate safely? In the same way, when emotions are storming in your heart, that is not the time to decide the future of your marriage. That is the time to remain silent, to step back, to reflect, and to pray. When the storm passes, clarity will come, and you will see the situation with fresh eyes. Another reality we must accept is that emotions are not always honest. Sometimes what we feel in the moment does not reflect the truth of our hearts. You may feel hatred in a moment of rage, but deep down you still love your spouse. You may feel hopeless when an argument seems endless, but later you realize that the bond you share is stronger than the conflict. If you allow your temporary emotions to dictate your permanent choices, you will end up breaking something that could have been repaired. Patience allows the heart to speak once the noise of emotions has faded. True wisdom is not shown in calm times. It is shown when emotions are boiling. Anyone can be wise when they are not angry, but the real test is whether you can control yourself when anger is at its peak. That is when character shows. That is when your faith, your self-control, and your maturity are proven. And in marriage, this moment comes often. If you can master it, you will protect your relationship from unnecessary harm. But if you fail, you will damage not only your spouse, but yourself, your children, and your peace of mind. Therefore, never allow emotions to drive you toward divorce without reflection. Let patience guide you, let wisdom calm you, and let time heal what emotions try to break. The strongest marriages are not those without conflict, but those where patience overpowers anger and wisdom overrules haste. Remember, emotions are waves. They rise, they fall, they pass. But if you let them decide your future, you may drown in regret. The key is to wait, to think, to pray, and only then decide. This is the path of patience, and this is the way wisdom saves marriages. In every relationship, misunderstandings are inevitable. Two people from different backgrounds, raised in different environments, carrying different habits and expectations, are bound to clash from time to time. Sometimes it is something as small as a forgotten word, an overlooked gesture, or a careless tone. But if these small matters are not handled with mercy and wisdom, they can grow into mountains that block love, respect, and peace. What begins as a tiny crack in the wall of marriage can, if ignored, widen into a fracture that destroys the entire structure. The danger lies not in the misunderstanding itself, but in how it is managed or mismanaged. A small misunderstanding, when looked at through the eyes of compassion, can be dissolved instantly. A kind word, an apology, or even a moment of silence can heal what could otherwise become a deep wound. But when pride interferes, when mercy is absent, even the smallest issue becomes a battlefield. A spouse forgets to say thank you, and instead of forgiving, resentment begins to build. A partner is late without explanation, and instead of showing patience, assumptions are made. Soon, what could have been solved with a simple conversation grows into endless suspicion and anger. This is how small misunderstandings, left unchecked, become poisonous. Mercy is the secret ingredient that keeps relationships alive. Without mercy, every mistake becomes unbearable. Without mercy, every imperfection becomes magnified. But when mercy enters the heart, it softens the way we see each other. You realize that your spouse is human, just like you, capable of error, forgetfulness, and weakness. If you demand perfection, you will always be disappointed. If you expect flaws and meet them with forgiveness, you will always find peace. Mercy is not about ignoring problems, it is about addressing them with kindness and the willingness to move forward. Consider the example of a seed. If planted in fertile soil and watered, it grows into a tree that provides shade and fruit. But if neglected, weeds will surround it, and the seed may never reach its potential. Misunderstandings are like seeds. If you respond with mercy, they become opportunities to grow stronger together, to learn, and to deepen your bond. But if you respond with harshness, suspicion, or silence, they will grow into weeds that choke the love between you. Mercy is the water that washes away the bitterness and nurtures harmony. Another danger of neglecting small misunderstandings is that they can lead to dangerous assumptions. When one spouse feels ignored or misunderstood, instead of communicating directly, they begin to create stories in their mind. He doesn't care about me. She doesn't respect me. These thoughts, repeated again and again, form walls in the heart. Yet often the reality is far simpler. The spouse may have been busy, tired, or distracted, not uncaring. But because the misunderstanding was never addressed with mercy, it grew into a false belief that poisoned the relationship. The greatest marriages are not those without misunderstandings, but those where misunderstandings are handled with compassion. A gentle word, a willingness to listen, and an open heart can turn conflict into closeness. Each time a misunderstanding is resolved with mercy, trust is strengthened. Each time forgiveness is chosen over resentment, love becomes deeper. And each time humility is chosen over pride, the relationship becomes unbreakable. It is also important to remember that mercy is not weakness, it is strength. Anyone can retaliate, anyone can hold a grudge, anyone can walk away. But it takes real strength to forgive, to give another chance, and to see the good in your spouse despite their flaws. Mercy is the bridge between two hearts. Without it, the distance grows until divorce feels like the only option. With it, even the deepest wounds can heal, and love can return stronger than before. So, whenever a misunderstanding arises, pause and ask yourself, will I let this small issue destroy something so valuable, or will I apply mercy, forgive, and move forward? Most of the time, the answer is clear. Small issues should never be allowed to break big bonds. Choose mercy, because mercy keeps families together, and mercy is what transforms misunderstandings into moments of growth. Anger is one of the most dangerous emotions when it comes to relationships. It rises like fire, burning everything in its path, and in those moments of heat, people say and do things they never intended. A single word spoken in anger can damage years of trust. A single decision made in that heated moment can alter the entire course of life. That is why wisdom teaches us that decisions should never be made when emotions are boiling, especially when it comes to something as serious as divorce. Too many marriages have ended not because love was gone, but because anger was allowed to dictate the outcome. When anger takes control, clarity disappears. The mind becomes clouded, the heart becomes hard, and mercy is forgotten. Couples who once shared laughter, love, and dreams suddenly begin to speak like enemies. In that haze of rage, a husband may say, "I divorce you," or a wife may scream, "I want out." But once the storm passes, when calmness returns, both realize that the words spoken were not the reflection of their true hearts. And yet the damage is done. A relationship that could have been saved is left broken because of a decision made in the darkest heat of anger. The truth is, anger is temporary, but its consequences can be permanent. It comes suddenly, it feels overwhelming, but it eventually fades. Unfortunately, the words and actions it produces cannot always be taken back. Think of how many people cry in regret after making a choice in anger. They look back and ask themselves, "Why did I not wait? Why did I not remain silent until my heart cooled down?" They realize too late that if they had only paused, their life could have taken a completely different path. This is why patience is the key that saves marriages from unnecessary destruction. One of the greatest pieces of wisdom is to never decide on divorce while angry. If emotions are running high, step away. Remain silent. Give yourself time to calm down, whether it's an hour, a day, or even more. Once your mind clears and your heart softens, then revisit the problem. Most of the time, you will realize that what felt unbearable in anger is actually something you can forgive, tolerate, or work through. In fact, many couples admit that after their anger cooled, they couldn't even remember why they wanted to separate in the first place. That is the deception of anger. It makes small issues look huge and solvable problems look impossible. Another danger of anger-driven decisions is that they often harm the innocent. Children are the first victims when parents let anger destroy a marriage. In the heat of conflict, parents may think they are only punishing each other. But in reality, the children carry the heaviest scars. They lose the stability of a united home, the comfort of both parents together, and the sense of safety they deserve. And years later, many children continue to feel the pain of decisions their parents made in anger. This alone should be enough to remind couples to control themselves and think twice before letting anger dictate their choices. It is important to remember that anger itself is not the problem. It is natural to feel upset, hurt, or frustrated. The real problem is letting anger control your actions instead of you controlling your anger. A strong person is not the one who wins every argument or shouts the loudest. True strength is in the one who can restrain themselves when they are most angry, who can hold back their tongue, and who can choose silence over destruction. That is the strength that protects marriages, families, and hearts from harm. So if you ever find yourself in a moment of rage, pause and remind yourself, this is not the time to decide anything permanent. Do not let one heated moment destroy what you have built for years. Do not let temporary anger lead to permanent regret. Walk away, breathe, pray, reflect, and only when calmness returns make your choice, because anger is like a storm, it always passes. But if you allow it to control you, it can leave behind ruins that last a lifetime. Protect yourself, protect your spouse, protect your family, and never let anger write the story of your life. Life will always test relationships, and marriage is no exception. Misunderstandings, anger, pride, and impatience can shake the foundation of even the strongest bonds. But the message is clear. Divorce should never be rushed into, and it should never be chosen in the heat of emotion. It is a last resort, a step to be taken only when every effort to heal, reconcile, and rebuild has been sincerely tried. With patience, mercy, forgiveness, and wisdom, many wounds can be healed, and many relationships can be saved. If you are standing at the edge of making this life-changing decision, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, have I truly done everything possible to restore what is broken? Have I allowed mercy to soften my heart? Have I sought guidance, prayer, and counsel? Sometimes the solutions we overlook are the very keys that could transform our pain into peace and our struggles into strength. And if after all efforts divorce still becomes necessary, then let it be approached with dignity, respect, and compassion. Not out of anger, but out of wisdom, so that hearts are not torn more than they need to be. Because the way we end something matters just as much as the way we begin it. Thank you for listening with an open heart. May these words bring clarity, strength, and guidance to those who need it most. May you find peace in your decisions, mercy in your relationships, and wisdom in every step of your journey.